Morning, guys. How many have we got in here? There's a few of you here. So today, guys, I want to talk about 10 of the top questions that we get in the comments over the last couple of months. The channel is about to hit 15,000, and anyone in the YouTube space kind of knows that's a big deal. That's growing pretty quickly. We've been going here since April, so I think it works out to about 10 months. And, well, that's just awesome. Like, you guys are awesome for subbing, bloody legends. We'll go through these top 10 questions, if you like, that I've been asked. If you've got any others, just put them in the comments and I'll see them on the side here and I'll answer them for you as well. Where we are right now, because most of our viewers on this channel are in the States, we're doing this here on Saturday morning. It's Saturday morning at 7:30 in the morning here where I am. So 5-minute Fridays are Saturday. Anyway, these top 10 questions. First one with the S21 Ultra. I get asked a lot about Gcam, the Google camera, and that's purely because of the astrophotography, I'm guessing, the astrophotography mode that's on that camera with the stacking of the images. 330 in the States. Yeah, cool. So the stacking of the images on Gcam is what makes the Pixel awesome for what we do here. But I've got to be honest, like I've been shooting astrophotography for a long time with Canon cameras, full frame cameras. I've tried it with Olympus, I've tried it with Sony, Nikon. I've tried it with all different brands. I just shoot Canon because that's just my kind of go-to. That's what I've got the most gear for doing corporate sort of work and weddings and that sort of stuff. And stacking images have always been the go-to in that realm for getting rid of noise. And I'll be honest, I don't do it very often. I've only done it a handful of times over the last 5-6 years. I find that shooting a 30-second long exposure on a full-frame camera is enough. And these days, with the technology that's in those sensors, it's enough you can reduce that noise in post-production in Lightroom and stuff later on. So that's all good. Gcam on the S21 Ultra only works on the Snapdragon processors. With the Exynos, which is what we have everywhere else in the world except for the United States, we can't do it. So for you guys in the States, you can do it. There's a few good videos around on YouTube. What's his name? I can't think of his name. It escapes me. I'll put it in a post later and go and check it out. He's quite a good YouTuber. He's got like 5.5 million subs, so he's got to be doing something right. But he's done a really good explanation of the Snapdragon versus the Exynos processor on the S21 Ultra, and he's done a heap of testing against those two, and the Snapdragon is just so much better. And I think that comes down to becomes a large part of the element when we have the iPhone versus the Android, or iPhone versus the Samsung debate. I think that sort of thing plays into it a little bit, and I'll talk about that again in a little bit later. But if you're in the States and you've got the S21 Ultra, you should be able to load the Google camera onto that phone. In saying that, what it does out of the box with what I've done in my videos with the 30-second exposure, the high ISO, it's a bloody good photo anyway. So I wouldn't be stressing out too much about that. I think doing what the camera can do with the native app is pretty bloody good. And the way that the Google camera stacks it to get rid of the noise, I know that it gets rid of some of the smaller stars, whereas a 30-second exposure just doesn't do that. So it's like most things with photography, it's a bit of a way up. Let me just have a quick read through this. Which two cameras would you choose? Mate, are you talking about a proper camera, or are you talking about a phone to shoot those northern lights? I'm not sure what you mean. If it's for a phone, well, pretty much anything that we shoot here on this channel. So that's the Pixel, the iPhone, the S21. The S21 is probably going to be best for that because it's got the full manual control for doing the northern lights because they move, obviously. So depending on how quickly that's all moving, you might need to reduce the shutter. You might need to increase the ISO. I personally think that the S21 is probably best for shooting those northern lights. There's a lot of comments here, guys. How many of you in here? Nearly 30 of you. Oop, that's the Samsung telling me there's a message. I still haven't put a SIM card in it yet. I'm not sure if it's been covered, but you wonder if you could tell us what tripod. Yep, I'll talk about that in a second. Hey, you referred to my question. Yeah, I did. I think I just answered it. Snapseed, and I'll put a note here for Snapseed and Lightroom. So that's the answer for as far as Gcam goes on those two phones. Why is my photo white? Now, I get this a lot when we teach regular photography, like one-on-one with people. When we go out and I bring people here to our location from like the city, and we go out and we take photos, and they go, mine's all white, it's not working. What you're telling me is not working. Well, we're using manual modes here, and every single camera sensor is different. Every single camera brand is different. So we need to keep that in mind. What I tell you as far as well, on the S21, we're talking about 30 seconds. We're talking about 3200 ISO. We're talking about the white balance and things like that. These are all manual settings, and you need to adjust those manual settings for your environment that you're in. So if you're shooting something from your backyard, and I've seen some people actually doing that, and they say it's all white, well, the light pollution is just way too much, and it's just not going to work for you. You need to reduce that exposure, the shutter time. You need to reduce the ISO to bring these things back. And you test it. You take a photo, and it's still too bright. You test it again. You bring it a little bit lower. That's the whole purpose of doing this sort of photography. Once you understand the basics of this sort of photography, you can kill it pretty much anywhere. So it's a starting point. It's the maximum that these things can do. When I did the very first video on the S21 Ultra, it was pitch black. There was nothing there. There was no ambient light at all. So these things are pushed to their max, and the photos are, well, you've seen the photos, they're just bloody awesome. But if there's a lot of light pollution, you need to adjust for that. So you need to reduce the shutter time, you need to reduce the ISO, and play with it until you get the sort of result that you're after. A lot of people have asked why I'm editing the photos before I show them to you. And that's because I'm shooting raw. With the Pixel, you can shoot raw, and you can get the raw file, and it will look pretty similar to what the JPEG looks anyway. And that's because the Google stacks those images. So when you're stacking the image and then giving me a raw, I'll generally call bullshit on that. It doesn't quite work that way. If you're stacking the image, it's no longer a raw file. It's not the data straight off the sensor. So it just doesn't quite work that way. So the Pixel's here or there. With the iPhone and the Samsung, and pretty much any other Android that's just using the native camera app, if you're shooting raw, it's going to give you that information straight off the sensor. iPhone to a lesser extent, I'll explain that at the end, but it'll give you almost a black photo. It's just black, and you can recover the shadows and recover the blacks in post-production later, whether that's in Snapseed or Lightroom. It's just going to give you a black photo though, and that doesn't show you guys anything. I can go and take a raw photo, put it on the screen on the video, and say, there you go, there's a black photo, and it doesn't show you anything. So that's why I don't show you the raw photos. There's no point doing it. What you can recover later, that's what matters. Can I try the OnePlus? OnePlus is, on a side note, I've been in contact with a number of manufacturers, because all the phones that I'm using at the moment, they're out of my pocket. That's costing me a lot of money. So I've touched base with a few different manufacturers, and that's all I'll say at the moment. We'll wait. I'm talking with some of them back and forward, and you never know what you're going to see in the not too distant future. OnePlus is good. That's what I'm hearing. I think any sort of phone that is going to have a reasonable size sensor and that you can shoot full manual, you should be able to do pretty much what I'm doing with the S21, in theory. I did a video last year sometime, one of the earlier videos, and I shot the Galaxy S8, and I was blown away. I was so happy with what they could do, and that's an old phone. So in theory, look, anything that you can shoot manually with a reasonably sized sensor, you should be able to do something pretty good with it. Any plans to do nighttime shooting? That absolutely. So at the moment, so that's, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, that's the 12 Pro, and that's the the Samsung, the S21, you can see one of them has a cover and one of them doesn't. And where I live is quite remote, so I can't just duck down to the shop and get a new phone cover. I have to order these things, and they're on their way. So once this bad boy's got a phone cover on it, then we'll get out and do some more stuff in and around town and around lights while it's dark. So I'll head to town. Actually, next weekend I'm heading down to Melbourne, down to the city, and we'll do lots of stuff down there with light trails of cars and things like that. Things that you don't need to be where I am to do it. Yeah, someone's already answered there, Jono. That Google Sky Map is pretty good. So the question was asked, is there any apps on the Android that you can use to find out where different stars are in the night sky? And that Google Sky Map is pretty good as well. On what I would say to you is that if you're trying to do photos like I've done with the Milky Way, the galactic core through the middle, like that orange gaseous cloud through the middle there, if you're trying to do that, then PhotoPills, in my opinion, is the best. You're not going to beat it. It's an expensive app. Well, as far as apps go, it's like $15 or something like that. And I use it for all of my planning for astrophotography. You can use the augmented reality, use the camera, you can bring fast forward time, and you see where that Milky Way will sit, at what time of year. You can change the day, change the time. It's just fantastic. It's an awesome app for planning what you're talking about there. And it's on both iOS and Android. Sky Safari. Never heard of Sky Safari. Writing it down. Skyview. Man, this is why I love you guys. I find always cool stuff. I get as much out of this sometimes as what you guys do. Next one. Number 4 is the other question that I get asked, or comment that gets asked, gets put quite a lot. And this is one of those things where we go, I'm a Samsung person or Android person, or I'm an iPhone person. The iPhone people you can tell when you read the comments, you go, well, you're obviously an iPhone person. You're obviously a Samsung person. The iPhone people go, the Samsung looks way too colorful. The colors aren't right. And then you'll hear other people say, the iPhone colors are just not right. Well, we're shooting RAW. And one of the main benefits of shooting RAW is that you can change the white balance later. And I'll tell you that if you're shooting astrophotography, I've never, ever, ever taken a photo of astrophotography and not edited it. It just doesn't happen. I shoot RAW for pretty much everything I do on proper cameras and stuff. So you have to edit that sucker anyway. And you adjust the colors, you adjust the saturation. The whole point of the technology in a camera is to capture what's available to you. With astrophotography, then you adjust those things later on. So as far as colors go, you adjust it the way you want to. And all the phones that we play with here, you can adjust all of them. So it doesn't matter. Sorry, guys, I'm just reading questions here. We're talking about megapixel numbers. I'll talk about that in a second. Absolutely there. It's Pierre. I know that name. Show us how to get the best out of a drone. Yeah, so there's a few things that have been happening with drone crap here in Australia. They were talking about bringing laws in because I make money with my photography and with this channel. I would have to license and then register and all that sort of crap. So someone asked, am I going to do aerial photography? And I will be. In the summer here, the sky is just stupidly bright. And I'm not that keen to take the drone up pre-dawn and like the blue and the gold now. I'm not that keen to do that. As the winter starts bringing in, the days get a little bit shorter. There's a lot more chance of me getting up there and showing you guys the sort of stuff that I do with my aerial photography. So yes, I will be doing it. Still, stay tuned. Megapixels, the more megapixels on the phones and for astrophotography, I'll say that the megapixels are irrelevant. Well, they're not irrelevant. They play a part, but not as big a part as what the marketing folks will make out to be. For astrophotography, the size of that pixel is what matters. So you could have a sensor the size of your little fingernail and say it's 108 megapixels, and you can have another camera that says same physical size, but it's only 12 megapixels, the 12 megapixel one is going to bring in more light. Each one of those megapixels is a little bit bigger, and as that pixel is bigger, it lets more light into it. So that's what you want for astrophotography. It's what you want for all photography, to be honest. More light, so it's faster. So for astrophotography, the bigger that pixel size, the more light comes into it, the better you're going to get. So that absolutely matters. Computational photography comes into a little bit with the phones that we use here, but the pixel size is what matters more to me than the pixel count. All right, let's move on. Can I get these results? Oh, yeah. Excuse me, I'm talking a lot. Hello from Sweden. G'day. A number of questions have been asked of, especially with the last few videos I've done with this phone versus this phone. A lot of people have asked, can I get this with this phone? So when I've been shooting with the S21, a lot of people have been asking, can I get this with the S20? And the short answer is yes. And a lot of people with the iPhone 12 Pro Max that I've been shooting with, can I get this photo with the iPhone X? The short answer is yes. But there's differences. So with the Samsung things, for Samsung phones, before the S21, well, I went and shot a video last year, like I mentioned before, with the S8. And it takes a good photo. It doesn't take it quite as good. Obviously, the technology has evolved a bit. So you can still do it. And the principles are exactly the same. The only difference, just do it. You'll see. It works perfectly fine. With the second point in mind, like if you've got a lot of light pollution, the second point that I made today, the second question that we answered here today, in that my photos are just white. So any phone with manual functionality will be able to do what we're doing here. You need to escape the light pollution, find out where that galactic core is, and shoot just the way I've been teaching you on this channel. It'll work. It may not work as well as the S21. That thing's just awesome for a phone, but it still will work for you. I've got no doubt about that. With the iPhone, it's a little bit different. iPhones, you need an app for it, basically. There's no manual functionality, and anything before the iPhone 11, you're going to use Nightcap app, and you can do what we've done with the iPhone 11 and iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. You can do it all the same. You just need to get that Nightcap app, and I've done shitloads of videos on the Nightcap app. It works just fine. When I got the S21 and I did the very first video, before that video, I got virtually no sort of hostility on the channel in between the viewers, if you like, yeah, iPhone sucks and Android sucks and that sort of business. And if you watch some of the back catalogue that I've done, especially when I went and got the Pixel, and I mentioned in that video, all these manufacturers, they compete with each other, and they compete, and at the end of the day, we are who wins out of that. Like, they can compete with each other and keep going, but we are the ones who win because they're making good products, and then they're making better products, and then we get the better products. So who cares what brand is on the back? What I will say, though, is I watched that video the other day about the two chipsets that are in the S21, and as I'm watching this video and he's comparing the exact same phone but different chipsets, I was like, that's what's wrong. That's from the iPhone point of view. That's what's wrong with Android. Like, you don't get a choice as to what you get. If you live in this part of the world, you get this chipset, and if you live in this part of the world, you get this chipset. But you're paying the same price for the same product, but you're getting a different product, and that from anyone from the iPhone camp will go, that's just stupid. You shouldn't do that. So I look at that and I go, well, here I am reviewing this phone, which is ugly. We'll talk about that in a second. We're reviewing this phone, and anyone from the States that are watching this, they're going, well, mine's a little bit different. I've had questions about my phone's heating up, and that's because of the chipset. The chipset, the Exynos chipset will work harder to do what we're trying to do here, so your phone will heat up. It's the same bloody phone. You're paying the same money, and you're getting two different products. And from the iPhone point of view, iPhone user point of view, I go, well, that's just shit. I'm paying the same money. If I buy an iPhone, doesn't matter where I am in the world, I'm getting that product, exactly the same product everywhere in the world. Whereas with this one, I'm getting two different things. And when it comes to the Android versus iPhone thing, every year iPhone make, I don't know, 4 or 5 phones, and that's it. Whereas every year Android is making hundreds, if not thousands, of phones every year from all the different manufacturers. So when it comes to app development, there will always be heaps more apps on this than what there will be on that. I'm not saying that this is better than that. I'm not saying that at all. In my honest opinion, like this for a day-to-day sort of use of a phone, when I used a Samsung before, I thought this was better because of what I just said. This phone is the same all around the world, and the apps are more developed for this because they're only putting out 4 or 5 different phones every year. The camera on this, it's so much better than this. I think the camera is just amazing compared to that. But the apps are they're different. You've got to know what chipset my phone is and stuff. So I don't like that aspect of it. I think if you go and buy something, you should get something. If I buy product number A, I should get product number A, not product number A/2. To me, that just doesn't sit right. And that's why we don't have Nightcap. What do you mean that's why you don't have Nightcap? I'm not sure what you mean there. You mean on the Samsung? Shouldn't matter. You can shoot manually and it won't matter. No, I have not tried to capture the adronomer. I saw YouTube this morning for picture taking with S21. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Videos taken with the two different chipsets, they're slightly different. So the Snapdragon, I think, takes the better photo, which is not the phone that I have. So if you're in America, you'll get a better photo. Doing exactly what I'm teaching you here, the process is exactly the same. The settings are exactly the same. You're going to end up with a better photo than what I can shoot here. And if you can't, what are you doing wrong? I understand. You should be able to do something damn sight better than what I can do here. What I've noticed I'll probably watch the same video as you, is that when you get right in close, right cropping in really close, I think that the Exynos sensor was a little bit better, but the overall photo was probably better on the Snapdragon devices. So to close that one off with the iPhone versus the Android thing, I think they've both got their massive benefits. This is easier to use. I know I'm going to cause some havoc saying this. This one's for people who don't want to play with things too much, and this one is for people who are a little bit more clued on, I guess, and want to get in and change things in their phone. And that's about all I have to say about that. And we'll move on to the next one. Android can't get Nightcap because the dev team can't support the device. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's all the devices across all the Android phones, like 4 phones every year. Sorry, the comment down here was Android can't get Nightcap app because the dev team, as in the development team, can't go across all these different devices. And that's exactly what I'm saying. 4 or 5 phones every year versus hundreds of phones every year. You can't keep up. There are definitely things from both camps that are beneficial, and in my honest opinion, nobody anywhere has made the best phone yet. Just hasn't existed yet. The things that exist on both of these phones, and with the Pixel phone, if you had the best things from all of those camps, you would have a sensational bloody device, but it just doesn't exist yet, I don't think. We'll move on. Focusing on the foreground subject. This is another question that I get asked a lot, and that is when you're shooting a night photo with the Milky Way and you've got a subject in the front, how do you focus on both of those? Well, I have done a video on that, and the video I've got coming out, it is Monday. The video I shot for Monday, we're talking about exactly that with the S21, and we're doing it with the iPhone. We're doing both devices, and you'll see there how to do it. With the Pixel, it just does it anyway. The Pixel does it really well, and if you put something in the foreground with the Pixel, I haven't done one yet that hasn't worked. Light something in the foreground with a torch, and the Pixel just picks it up really well. That's something that it does really well. That's to do with that stacking that it does. Will you be doing videos other than outside scenes in addition to night sky lights? Absolutely. I've been waiting for, because I get up so bloody early in the morning to go out and shoot some of the videos for you guys. And I'm talking about like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I generally miss the sunset. I'm in bed as the sun's going down. As winter gets closer, the days get shorter. You'll see sunset photos and sunset tutorials and things like that with the Samsung as well. I've done it for the iPhone, and we'll do it all again for the iPhone and the Samsung. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll be doing exactly that. You should use a space engine. Space engine. Is that an app? Is that what you're talking about there? Anyway, I'll let you answer that and I'll keep going on. So the focusing on the foreground subject, stay tuned. That's tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow. It's Monday coming out for you guys. What phone cover? I get asked that a lot, what phone cover that is. This is a life-proof wake case. It's supposed to, I think it's supposed to be able to drop from like 2 meters or something. I just like it. You can grip onto that really well. They do, it's made from like recycled sea plastic or something like that. So you kind of feel like you're getting a bit touchy-feely with Mother Nature when you buy one of those. And oddly enough, it's exactly what I've got coming for that bad boy. So that's the case I use. And following on to that is the tripods. And someone emailed me just before as well. It's a question I get asked a lot. Where did I put the bloody thing? So there's 2 tripods that I use. One is the Joby tripod, and you would have seen that sort of thing by now. That's got the GoPro mount on there at the moment, but that's just a little slide lock that goes and sits directly into that, and you can just change this. So that's how it comes when you buy it, just like that. The most important part of this is not this. This is great. The most important part of this is just this. It's that ball head. So you can set this tripod up and move the phone camera to where you want it to, and just tighten this wheel, and that's where it sits. Make sense? So that's the tripod that I use. The phone holders that I use. The phone holders are these little Ulanzi ones. I'll just unscrew it from this little rig that I use to compare the 2 cameras. So they're these Ulanzi ones. You see that all right? Maybe you can see that all right. Anyway, it's a metal holder, and it's got the same thread that goes into the tripod that I just showed you, and it goes into any tripod. It's a universal sort of fit. And these are like $14 or something. They're cheap as chips. So the most important part, as far as I'm concerned, is this part and that ball head. The ball head is quite important because there's 2 different sorts of tripod, 3 different sorts of tripod heads, I suppose. One's a video, like slewing sort of tripod. The other one is the 2 arms that you loosen and you just move it on the 2 axes, X and Y axis. And the third is the ball head. And the ball head, as far as I'm concerned, especially with phones, it's the best. The phone holder is Ulanzi, Ulanzi. Trying to get, there you go. You should be able to see that. And Ulanzi make tripods, they make tripod heads, they make phone holders, they do all sorts. There is one that they do use, and it folds flat. So this one here doesn't fold flat. It's just that it's like molded that way. It's machined that way. They've got another one that these parts will fold up, and I'd say don't do that. Don't get that. The reviews that I've seen on those are just terrible. I wouldn't even try one because they, from what I understand, they get to the point where they use them a fair bit, and the arms kind of move like this, and it's not holding your phone. And for the sake of $14, holding on to nearly $2,000, that just doesn't make sense. Buy one that's just going to do the job for you. Don't go for something that's fad-like and it just looks cool. These things, they're bulletproof. They just work. So that's what I would get. Have you ordered any of the MagSafe moment mounts for your iPhone? MagSafe moment. MagSafe moment. I'm not sure what that is. Get back to there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Sorry. No, because it's a magnet. I just don't like the idea of that. See, quite often I'll put a phone into that tripod mount with all the videos that I shoot. If I'm going somewhere on my bike, I will absolutely use that Gorilla Grip, the Gorilla Pod, this bad boy. Because it's so small, I can just put it in the bag on my bike. But for shooting the videos that I do for you guys, I always take this tripod. This is a Manfrotto tripod. It's for a proper camera, and I've had this for like 10 years or so. And because it's got the ball head, then I can do what I want to with that as well. When I'm shooting videos for you guys and I'm out at night, I'll have a phone in here, sometimes two phones, and I'll just sling this over my shoulder and just start walking through the bush or up the hill or wherever I'm going. And I wouldn't really feel that safe doing that held on by a magnet. I just wouldn't. It might hit a branch or whatever off a tree, and I'm not confident that a magnet would hold it on. So for me, no, I wouldn't do that. Two things left to tell you. I've never seen as much controversy on my channel than when I said this is ugly. If you look through the comments on that first video where I called this bad boy ugly, man, there's some people hating on me. But I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that's overly attractive either. I don't think any camera bezel is really that nice looking. In fact, someone said to me on a comment just the other day, yesterday it was, that this looks like a stovetop. And now that I've seen it looking like a stovetop, I can't unsee it looking like a stovetop. That's just hilarious. But this takes up almost a quarter of the camera. It's friggin' massive. And it blows me away that like so many YouTubers out there are saying this is amazing, it looks beautiful, and the rest of it. I think if I'm sitting here telling you it looks ugly, in my opinion, you're always going to get my honest opinion. It doesn't mean that you have to think it's ugly. I think it's ugly. You don't have to think it's ugly. And the reason I think it's ugly is that they don't line up. Like for something that's square and rectangular, sort of like polished off that way, it's not lined up. And once I explain this to you, you're probably not going to unsee it. If you're like one of these people who go, that's not bloody ugly, you bastard. Well, see these lenses here. Let's get light in the right spot. These larger lenses and these smaller lenses, see how far these are from the edge of the bezel? See how far these are from the edge of the bezel? Why are they all off center? It doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to make them like that, make the bezel a little bit bigger, make them in the center. And see these lenses on this side? They don't line up with lenses on that side. So to me, it looks like it was made on a Friday when I just want to knock off for the week and go and get on the piss. They don't line up. And to me, that just doesn't make sense. And look, it's just my opinion. So it's just my opinion. I'm just giving you what I honestly think. And if you disagree with it, that's cool. It doesn't mean we're going to hate each other. That's just the rest of the world. But here, we can agree to disagree here. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about, looks are definitely subjective. Absolutely, they're subjective. Made on a Friday. You haven't heard that term, made on a Friday? If you get a bit of kit that's a piece of shit, it's made on a Friday. And if you get something that's made and it's good, like they've put this together well, it's probably made on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday, not on a Monday, because Monday, that's thinking about the weekend. They don't really want to get into work yet. So Monday and Friday, things that are assembled on a Monday and Friday, don't buy that shit. The last thing I want to talk to you about is what we've discovered recently in one of the more recent videos is the stacking that Apple does. Excuse me a second, talking too much. That's my old battalion right there, my old army battalion that I was in. So when we talked about the Pixel, when we first reviewed the Pixel, how long have we been going for here? 35 minutes. Bloody hell. I've got to get out of here, so I've got to go do a photo shoot. When we talk about the Pixel, when we first got the Pixel, I was blown away. And everyone that watched this channel and watched that first video that I did with the Pixel, you're like, that's bloody amazing. And it's because it stacks those images. And we know that because it's well publicized that they do that. And when we put those photos from the Pixel into Adobe Lightroom and we investigate the metadata that's in those photos, we can see they're shooting for 16 seconds. With a 4-minute photo with the app, 4 minutes and 6 seconds, we're going to get 15 or 16 second exposures. So 16-second exposure times 16, and we put them together and it gets rid of all the noise. That's how that computational photography works on the Pixel. Now, you might have seen, I'm not sure when that video was, it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe. I did the same thing with the iPhone and I looked at the metadata and it was like, holy shit, this is 3 seconds. And why is it 3 seconds? And I think it's because they stack the images as well. Now, I've done some testing on this. I've done, and I basically stopped the phone. So I set, because you can't adjust it manually to shoot 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 seconds. It's either 10 seconds, put on a tripod, it's 30 all of a sudden. You can't stop it. And what I will tell you is that it varies. It's never 1, 2, or 3 or 4 seconds. It's never just that. It's different every single bloody time I take that photo. So what this is telling me is that iPhones are absolutely stacking those images. But they're stacking, I believe, they're stacking them for the wrong reasons. I think that I'm probably the only idiot out there trying to take photos of stars with your iPhone and putting it on this channel. I think it's mainly designed for people taking photos in town, like in the cities and stuff, at nighttime, where there's so much more ambient light, because I don't think it stacks it for noise. Now, you can't pull apart the photo. It just doesn't work that way. But I think that those 1, 2, or 3 second photos, I think this is like a HDR photo. That's what I think. I think that the 30-second exposure that you see on that little wheel as you turn it, I think it's just bullshit. I think it's not a 30-second exposure at all. It's 1, 2, or 3 seconds, and taking 10, 20, or however many photos and stacking them together in a HDR format, a high dynamic range. So I think that's why we're seeing that. I think that's why we're seeing those artifacts in the sky. I think we're just pushing this bloody thing too hard. When Apple says it's a 30-second exposure, it's just not. It's not how it works at all. It's a 1, 2, or 3. It's not stacking them for noise because we get all those artifacts in the sky. I think it's stacking it just for HDR. So it's taking a longer exposure for dark environments, which is why we're getting the artifacts. And I think that it's taking a shorter photo for the light parts and just pushing it all together that way. That's what I think. I'll just read these comments, guys, before I get out of here. There were so many people disliking the video. Don't know why some people dislike any video for no bloody reason. Stupid people. Someone made a comment the other day about why I get dislikes on that first video. It's because I call that ugly so much, and I tend to agree. That's my opinion, guys. I've got a few different companies talking to me at the moment to sponsor some videos, and one of them I'm just not going to do. It doesn't fit this channel. I don't like the product. So you're always going to get my honest opinion when it comes to products. iPhone definitely doesn't stack for that. Now, I absolutely agree with you, Marianne. Took a couple of handheld star shots and they were garbage. I've taken handheld photos as well with the iPhone, and for a handheld photo, I wouldn't have said they were garbage. From here, I've got pretty good photos handheld. You get better photos on a tripod because it's shooting longer, I suppose, shooting more. But I agree, it doesn't stack it for noise. That would make sense because Apple never advertised night mode for shooting the stuff. Absolutely. In saying that, some of the bigger YouTubers are out there doing exactly that. Like this channel is obviously much more for night stuff that I do here, and that's what I'm becoming known for. But there's definitely some of the big, like iJustine did a big video when the iPhone 12 came out with night mode and said, how good is this for night mode? And it was all about the stars. So she didn't go and buy that phone and put money on it. And you know that they would have been pushing her to do that sort of thing with the stars. It does work. It just doesn't work as well as others. Thanks, Jono. Hooroo. You make a comparison between iPhone 12 Pro Max and iPhone 20 Ultra. iPhone 20 Ultra I don't have. And I haven't been able to find one yet. So I'm still looking. I always look for these different other phones. So we'll see. If I can get one, I definitely will. But I can't go and buy one. I'm buying phones left, right, and centre. It's costing me a bloody fortune. Appreciate the video. Looking forward to more Pixel tips. Cool. I'm spoilt too with my full frame Canon. What I have found though is with the Canon, when someone tries to call me, I can't answer it. As I say, the best camera is the one you have with you. Absolutely, Johnny. Guys, that's all I've got to talk to you about here today. Love your photos. This is the reason I've got my other half. Hero 9. Absolutely. I think I've messaged you before, maybe, Elaine. Sorry. Thanks, mate. It was off. I actually made the note off to the side. Lightroom versus Snapseed. Now, I think the question was, hold on, because I didn't actually put what the question was. I've just written Snapseed and Lightroom. Let me scroll back through this stuff. Sorry, you're just going to look at me looking off to the side of the camera for a minute. And I can't find the bloody thing. I can't see the bloody question anymore. Wait. You're talking about the different. You're new to Lightroom. You usually use Snapseed. How do these two compare? They compare very bloody well. There's only one tool that I've seen. They just work a little bit differently. There's only one tool that I've seen that's on Lightroom, but not on Snapseed, and that's the dehazing tool. Lightroom does a lot of things better than what Snapseed does, but on the phone, well, I'm talking about on the computer. So on a computer, it does a lot better, obviously. Well, you can't use Snapseed on the computer anyway. But there's more control over Lightroom, I think, on the computer than what Snapseed is on the phone. When we compare Lightroom versus Snapseed just on the phones, there's only one tool that doesn't exist, and that's a dehazing tool. I haven't found dehazing anywhere yet on Snapseed. And I think you can edit the photos with Snapseed pretty bloody well. When it comes to astrophotography, that dehazing slider, I think, is pretty important, especially when it comes to phone photography. And all phones that I've had so far, there seems to be a lot of haze. And I think that's to do with the computational photography. They're just trying to bring more light out of what's not there. And that dehazing slider, it does makes an amazing difference. Over on Patreon, one of the guys over there asked about this and about editing one of the photos. And I think I even told him in that there to move that dehaze slider. And he would have seen there that it makes a massive difference. And Snapseed just doesn't have that. But I will say that for pretty much everything else, every photo that I take that's, if I go back through and look at all the photos that I've exported from Snapseed and from Lightroom, I would have more from Snapseed. My normal day-to-day sort of photography, like the 60-second on this channel, the YouTube shorts that I do, if it's daytime, it's almost always edited in Snapseed. So I use Snapseed quite a bit. I use Lightroom because I do most of my commercial stuff, the weddings, the family photos, commercial work, all that goes through Lightroom because Lightroom on the computer has a really good way of archiving photos. So I use it as much for archiving stuff as what I do for the editing, I guess. Do I ever use Photoshop? Pretty rarely. I've got Photoshop installed on the computer. I use it for some of the lighting stuff that I do, especially around weddings. If I've got a really kick-ass sunset happening and I'll put the bride and groom there, I'll bring in some big strobes and light them up. I'll expose for the background for the sunset, so you've got that awesome sunset. Then I'll put some strobes onto the subject, photograph them, get them to stay there, move the lights out of the way, take another photo, and then later in Lightroom I'll blend those two photos just so I don't have the lights that are lighting those two in the photo. So does that make sense? It's just a simple masking thing. But I don't use Lightroom. I don't use Photoshop really for anything else. I use it occasionally for my thumbnails on YouTube, but no, I don't use it for anything really. I have used it for, that's what I used to use for stacking photos to get rid of noise. And I've got a video coming up. When will it be? It's probably another 2 weeks away for stacking iPhone images. And we're not using Photoshop for that, but it's the same sort of principle. No worries, Ryan. Ryan or Rhino? If you lived here in Australia, you'd be called Rhino. Healing feature is free. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Healing tool is free. Everything is free on Snapseed. And I'm talking about dehazing, not healing. Dehazing, getting rid of haze in a photo. Healing exists on both platforms. Why is Apple lying? I'm talking about the 30-second photo. That's what I'm talking about with the lying part. It's not a 30-second photo. It's a stacked image, and I think it's stacked with HDR. That's what I was talking about before. In New Mexico, you get called Rhino. That's the way. I get called Shano. Why I hate having Adobe makes everything a subscription. Hey, look, I don't like the fact that it's a subscription either, but from their point of view, it's a good business model. I pay it every month, and there'd be millions of photographers around the world who pay it every month as well. G'day from Norway. More tips on iPhone 12 Pro Max. Well, cool. I think I've answered everything, guys. I appreciate the comments. I really do. I've got half an hour to go over there and get a family photo shoot done this morning before I go for a ride on my new scooter. All right, guys. I'll catch you later. You have a great day. See you.